Hey everybody, I am so happy to be here and I'm so excited you're here as well. Like Mathilde said, this is going to be a fairly interactive webinar. So what I'd like you to do is exercise your questions area and give me a shout out, your name, where you're coming from, what company. I'll give you a shout out right back at you, just so I can get a sense of who's here today. So in your questions area, just type in your name, where you're from. Oh, here we go. So we got Dante from Offerzan. We have, who else? Ben from Singular Labs. I know Ben. I met him at Pulse, so that's really cool. Rachel Jackson from Austin. Robert from Learning in Arizona. Hey there. Let's see, who else? So really cool. Great group of people. Carrie from Function Point. Very awesome. So keep using the questions area, and I'll definitely pay attention to what you guys are entering, and we can just get going like that. So as you know, the customer success manager's goal is to maximize the lifetime value that you get from your client base, but also that your clients get from investing in the relationship with you. And that could be either a monetary kind of value, so dollars, but it also could be non-monetary value. For example, advocacy and building their careers on their end. But sometimes it's a bit challenging. And one of the ways that that can help us achieve this goal faster is by really assessing what kind of segmentation model you're applying, and does it really help you in your efforts to achieve your desired outcome. And so when I work with customer success teams, and I don't know how many of you know myself, the work that I do with clients, and what my company's about, but we work with a lot of customer success teams to improve their strategy and certainly apply technology and other tools to help them scale the team. And so when we work with customer success teams, we often find that every team has a different focus. And so I'll talk about the different desired outcomes that each team might have for their own customers and where they are in the journey. But what you want to do, and hopefully you'll get out of this webinar, is really the ability to assess, do I have the right segmentation model to achieve my current goals for my customer base? Is it working for me? And so you're in the right webinar if you want to better understand how to choose the right segmentation model and avoid common mistakes, and how to leverage the segmentation model to actually scale and get the results that you want more efficiently. Make the segmentation model work for you. And you want to also, if you want to learn how often you should reevaluate your segmentation model, that's also something that we can discuss in this webinar. So if you have a question for me during the webinar, feel free to post it in the questions area, and Mathilde will hopefully also help me out in understanding what questions are coming in, so we can have those pauses and fully have you understand segmentation models way beyond just the simple basic stuff. So like I said, a lot of customer success teams actually have their accounts segmentized, and they have names for each account. And so my question to you is, maybe we could do a quick poll so you can see how others, how many of you actually have a formal segmentation model. And by that I mean more than just saying you have a segment. It actually has to be formal, meaning every client only has one segment. It's very clear. There's a clear definition of what it is. There's names associated with each model, and there's a clear engagement model that's associated with each segment. So the question is, do you have a formal segmentation model? You can answer either yes or no. Some of you are already starting to answer, so that's really great. Let's see. Mathilde, something changed in the GoToMeeting. So I'm going to close the survey. That 61% of you, here we go. 61% said they do not have a formal one. So you might have some sort of a segmentation, but it's not formal, or maybe you have some names, but you don't have a clear engagement model. And I was really surprised, when I came across the first mature client, meaning this was a company that had 2,000 clients already. And they didn't have, they had an enterprise, mid, by size, sort of kind of a segmentation. But when I asked, okay, so how many clients do you have in each segment? They couldn't give me an answer because it was up to the CSM to decide, sort of is the answer that I got. So you're, that both of you're in, whether you have one or not, doesn't matter. Even if you have one, I'm going to show you how to do it better. So there's something for everybody here, hopefully. So for those 39% of you that did say they had a customer success segment, I want us to kind of share with the other folks, 60% of you that said they did not have a segment. A lot of times I'm being asked, what kind of names do segments have? People are really curious about that. So if you don't mind sharing with everybody, I'll give you a shout out and I'll share it with everybody else so that they can kind of understand what kind of segment names do people usually use. And if not, I'm just going to share what I'm seeing. So Dante says we have two segments, enterprise versus lower value. So those are the two names. Is there anybody else here that does segmentation that cares to share what kind of segments that they have? Okay, so Andrew Bird says tier 1 to tier 4 based on size. So that's current value and future value to the organization. Greg says we have tier 1, 2, and 3 by ARR. That's very common, by the way, Greg. Carrie says tiered based on user group size. And then Debbie says key clients, so higher revenue tier. Again, very, very common. Tiango Nascimento, I'm probably butchering your name, apologies, based on MRR. Let's say Cynthia Hernandez, she says they have 5 levels: general, preferred, premier, premier elite, and strategic. So very creative. Okay, let's see what else, if there's anything interesting here. So Ben Timmons says in his previous role, they had strategic, enterprise, corporate, broken down by MRR and subcategory by geography. So you'll note a lot of times companies do the subcategory, and that should be driven based on the goals that you have for the team at any given point, and that's the main meat of what this webinar is going to be about. Okay, Tyler Cooper says ABC, that's the name of the segments, and they're based on monthly average users. And then Ernie, that's going to be the last one. They have 3 tiers clients. They have 2 segments, strategic and commercial. Let's see if there's anything. Okay, I lied. I'm going to do one more. It's really interesting. So Sam Bernand, he says they have segments that are based on weighted average of company size, number of products they use. So they obviously sell multiple products, MRR, and products. So we align these with our account-based approach. And so they have, I think it's IAP1, IAP2, and IAP3. I have no idea what IAP stands for, but I sure, Sam, you'll be willing to share that with us. Okay, you get the point, right? There's different segment names. You can be as creative as you'd like to. Segment names should ideally, in my mind, be helpful to your team to better understand what it is that the segment is about. I know some companies have been more creative, and so maybe that serves a point. Whatever it is, you can see that there's no real consistency, is my point. Okay, but what we've seen is that, and I have validated that now with the answers that you gave me, is that most common form of segmenting accounts for customer success programs, and that would be true even for sales teams, is based on the level of revenues derives from that account. So typically it could be ARR or MRR, and the higher the ARR or the revenues that are achieved or are expected to achieve from a client, usually we have lower automation level and more personal human touch points. And so the lower the ARR, the higher level of automation that we see in terms of our engagement model for customer success. I'll pause here to see if anybody has any questions, and if we don't, I can just move forward here. Okay. So all this is very basic, right? Very basic stuff. ARR, segmentation. I can fall asleep, so does Simon. So what if, though, we could use customer data that we already have in our systems, and I'm not just talking about usage, it can be anything, but I am going to show how to use usage data as well. But what if we could take the data, everything we know about the clients, and drive awesome results? And so what does that mean? Let me show you. So first and foremost, you want to think about what are the goals for your team. When I talk to customer success teams, sometimes they say, you know what, we don't have a churn issue, but our solution, we think that it could be adopted or used a lot more frequently or for a lot more use cases. So their goal is increased adoption. Sometimes things are peachy, but they're not doing a lot on advocacy or upsells. And so they just want to invest all their efforts around really driving upsells and advocacy to a higher level. Sometimes we understand that, you know, while customers might not be leaving, and I was just talking to a company in Florida, they don't really have a churn issue because their product is really super sticky. However, onboarding is way too long. It almost takes a year, and they acknowledge that their goal as customer success team is to improve onboarding from a timing perspective, from experience perspective, and you know, every so often we do have a team that needs to battle churn. And so I'll touch on some of these goals and how we can leverage cohort analysis, customer analysis to drive better segmentation and then drive the right playbooks and engagement model to address these goals. So while your primary segment or segmentation model might be ARR, your secondary one should drive to achieve these results. Okay, thanks Dante for liking my assignment gift. All right, so I was just checking to see if there's any questions. Great, so given that every CSM team is unique, each one of you might have different goals, and given that every team is different, it doesn't really make sense to have the right segmentation model. And I want to prove it to you. So why don't we do a quick poll again, just so you could see how different teams have a different outcome that they're looking to achieve. And so think about the main primary goal that you have for this year, for this quarter, either for your book of business, if you're a customer success manager, or if you're an executive or a team leader, what is your main goal? So you'll be surprised. Some of you don't have churn issues, or they have slight, 2.5%, whatever, 1%, and you're more focused on onboarding or adoption. And some of you, just acknowledge, advocacy should be a big deal because you might have like great clients, but with advocacy you can get a lot more new business. Okay, so about 70% of you have voted. I'll give you another second or two. Okay, no big surprises here, so I'm just going to share the results. If you want to vote, go for it now. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Poll. No. The poll is showing. So Dante, the poll is showing five options: upsells, improve onboarding, increase adoption, advocacy, battles churn, and should be other, but I'm going to close it now so you can see. Okay, so I'm sharing the results now. You should see upsells is 12%, 15% are actually working very hard on improving onboarding, 36% are working on increasing adoption, and that could be usage trends, and then 5% of you are actually, as a high priority, have advocacy, and unfortunately 31% of you do need to battle churn. So how lucky are you? I am going to show you what other companies that I've worked with that did have churn as top of mind what kind of analysis they have done, and what kind of engagement model they have developed from that. So, like I said, you could see everybody's different. Not everybody voted on churn or adoption, but a lot of them did. So there's some commonality, and these are the main ones that I'm going to show today. But since they're all different, it really, do we really just want to apply a segmentation model based on ARR? Does it really make sense? I really don't think so, and I think most of you would agree with me. I just like her. Sorry. All right. Because it's really like insanity. Why are we doing the same thing, still segmenting by ARR, doing it again over and over, and just still getting the same results? Try something different, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to show you how using segmentation could be different, and hopefully you try it out and then email me in a few months from now and say, hey, Irit, thanks for doing this webinar. God bless. And so I'm going to focus on using the right tool for the right job, using the right segmentation, doing the right cohort analysis to get to the right results. I really like Philip's head. Okay, so whether you are a customer success executive trying to reach... Yes?
I think you just need to hide the results from the poll, and then we'll be able to see your slides again.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you. So... I don't think we need to use the same segmentation model. That's the insanity. Using the right tools for the right job, and now you're back with me. So bottom line, whether you are a customer success executive trying to reach a specific goal or another for your entire customer base, or you're a customer success manager managing a book of business, you have your customer base that you're managing, and you're trying to be more efficient and proactive in managing your customer portfolio, and you can see some trends, you can apply a segmentation model to achieve your results faster. In other words, segmentation models is a really great way to scale and be more productive. So let's get started. Where do we start? So I want you to write this down or take a screenshot or whatnot. The first thing you want to do is obviously list all your clients. So if you don't have, a data warehouse or one system where you have all your clients listed and you have all everything else, then you want to create an Excel spreadsheet, unfortunately. But it's a great way to start. So first thing you want to do is list all your clients. So if you're a CSM, list all of your clients in the first column, and then if you're an executive, then you'll have everybody's. And then think about as many attributes as possible. So if you're a CSM, you want to do, you want to focus on, what attributes might impact the behavior of my customers, or what might be interesting for me. And you saw one of the guys that's listening to the webinar said, hey, we did by ARR and then geography. So sometimes geography plays a really big part in how you would approach the client. And I know for a fact some customers of mine, some of their client base is in Europe and some of it is in America, and they, it's clear that they have to have a different customer success approach for the European because typically they're a bit more formal. They might want to have somebody speak their own language, et cetera, et cetera. So that has some valid in it, but we want everything. If you know how many employees they have, annual revenues, everything that could potentially be important, you want to put that down. So now, after you've collected all the attributes you can, you want to look at key performance metrics, including calculated ones. And I'm going to show you some examples. You want to use as many systems as possible. If you're, whether you are a very mature company, like a really big enterprise, or you're a very small startup, you might need to pull data from different systems, whether it's your CRM system, your CPQ, your quota business, your renewal, if you're using like a Zuora or something like that, to anything. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. So you want to use as many systems as possible to collect as much data as you can related to what you're trying to achieve. So I'm going to show you some examples. And then I want you to do a little bit of exercise of grouping your attributes. So I'm going to show you what that means in a minute here. I'm going to do a quick pause and see if there's any questions. Do we have any questions, Mathilde?
Not anything specifically about this slide, no.
Okay. So I think Brian is asking if I can show the industry results slide. So there's no, I didn't show a slide for industry results. I just talked about that this might be something that, oh, I think that I'm not really sure what he's asking actually. And then Scott is asking, site segmentation models should be consistent across organization, correct? We may design different strategies by segment, but should companies maintain different segments by teams? So sometimes, Scott, that would be true. So for example, sales team might have a completely different segmentation than the CSM team. A lot of times what I see is clients sort of companies force the same segmentation between sales and CSM because they want to align the account manager to the CSM. And so in that respect, I would highly encourage the CSM team to also subdivide their own segmentation then by whatever outcome they want. And if within the CSM team you have different teams, just because there's a team in Europe and a team in the UK, they certainly can apply different segmentations if their region is completely different and have completely different goals. So it all really depends on your desired outcome. And I think that's it for now. Okay, so one more question from Joel. Are the KPIs, including calculated ones, are goals for the customer or desired outcomes discussed with the client? So I'm going to answer that next. Okay, so Joel, listen very carefully. So first thing, before I answer your question, we have what are the bands or the different ways you can group this, and then group it by different sizes. And this is really what your segmentation might be looking like right now. You have some enterprise, mid-size, and SMBs. The reason we take the time to group actual metrics into specific categories is because it makes it easier for us to analyze and see trends. And so same thing happens for revenue band. And so this could be either the annual revenues that your client is making. So sometimes it's a public company or even a private one. There's plenty of databases that will tell you what's their annual revenue. And so you can do a revenue band. Are they high, medium, or low? In this case, I'm really taking the ARR and I'm putting it in a revenue band. So maybe $0 to $5,000, that would be my low ARR range. 5 to 10, I'm just dropping numbers here, but 5 to 20 is going to be medium and above 20 is going to be high. Of course, it all depends on your own business. I'm just giving you an example. So you take the ARR and you put it in categories. And then you can start collecting actual metrics like number of users that the seats that they have purchased with you. Now, I want you to put careful attention to what I have next. So the last 4 columns, these are not metrics that are going to appear in any one of your systems. What you actually want to do is you're going to say, how do I index or assess the financial value of each one of my companies? And one of you guys said, hey, we segmentize not just by the actual revenue that we receive, and that could be total contract value, ARR, MRR, whatever, average per user. But I might want to take all of those plus the annual revenues or like the potential that could be driven by number of employees, for example, that the customer has. And what is the overall financial value index that I can calculate for the customer? So I'll take different attributes related to the customer and I'll put weights in it and then I'll get to a certain financial index. Or if you want to do it super simple, maybe that's your ARR or your MRR. I recommend doing, the next step. percentage of usage, that's your utilization percentage. For example, if they purchase 10 seats, they're only using one, that would be 1%. If they purchase 10 and they're using 10, that would be 100%. And then obviously the health score, yet another index. And then the risk value. Now, a lot of you might confuse health score with risk value, or it's synonymous for you, which is fine. I actually like to create a health score to denote, is the client healthy? So if I look at the 5 attributes that make a super healthy client, how many of those attributes have they hit? And so that's the health score. And then the risk value would be, they notified us that they want to cancel. There's some real issues with this account, whatever it is that those indicate a risk of churn. The more they have, the higher the risk. So I want to assess all of these. You don't have to do all of them. Everybody's different. I'm just showing you different things that my clients do. So take whatever makes sense for you here. So do I have an example of that formula? Well, Tom, great question. I don't have it here, but we'll talk about what do we want to do to double click here and get more value. Obviously, this is just, a webinar. I only have so many minutes to discuss this, but okay. So let's talk about, so profitability could definitely be one of those things that you can add here. So Scott is asking, should there be a segmentation for total profitability? Absolutely, I think that would be great. So for example, if you have a goal for profitability, you do want to assess the profitability of your clients as another column here. So that's a great suggestion, and I do have it on my blog. So, but in this example, I just want to focus on churn risk. So these are the kind of attributes that I put here, but let me show you how you can use that. So now that we have that spreadsheet, we can actually start segmenting through a quadrant of sorts, and take all of our customers, whether it's 50 or 500 or 1,000, and do these quadrants where I take one of the financial value versus the level of risk that I have with the client, and see which ones are high level of risk but have a low financial value to me. And that, Scott, could be either their profitability, or it could be a mix of things, right? So that's why I recommend the financial value not just to be ARR. That could be a number of things that overall give them an index for what is their financial value to you. So obviously these ones here are the ones that I want to tackle first, and maybe I have a higher level of engagement from a personal perspective that I want to invest in. And obviously, the ones that have a low level of risk but high financial value, I don't have to give it that much of a priority because the risk is lower. So you can just change it up. And now profitability is definitely something that you can either include in the financial value index, or you can use it as a size for your bubble. You can also use the client size. You can use, how advocate are they with you? Do they advocate for you or not? What's their NPS score? What's the above the line score that you gave them? Do you have deep relationship with the account or not? So all of them could either determine the the urgency in which you deal with these accounts, your priorities, or they can also drive the type of engagement model and playbooks you're going to associate with these accounts. So you can be a lot more strategic by taking that data. And then what you want to do, once you applied, you discuss, you assessed your engagement level for these accounts to mitigate the churn risk. You want to assess also, what are you going to do with it? And so the next step that typically you can do is do some churn analysis. So you want to come up with a SAFE program, which is really your engagement model for these type of clients that we've already determined have either a higher or low level of risk. And then say, okay, further segmentize those too. Are they going to renew in this quarter or the next quarter, or maybe in the next 60 days? Can we extend? Are they eligible to have their contract extended? And you can decide what that means to your company. And have they already started engaging in a save play? And that usually means some sort of a success plan, that we started developing with them, and how many of those have already requested to cancel. And then you can further segmentize that to say, okay, how many of them should we apply safe playbooks? How many of those beyond the safe playbooks do we want also have the CEO outreach or some executive? And how many of them, they're too low of a risk, too low of an ARR, or too unprofitable, as you say, that they're not even qualified for us to reach out to. And then you can track to say, okay, how am I doing? How does this break down? So how many of them, obviously, go through that funnel of saving them, and how many of those have we actually saved? ATL is above the line relationship. So obviously, the better relationship you have with your client, the higher up. So let's say the CEO is really good friends with the client CEO, the likelihood of churning is really low. And so while that can't happen for every customer, we do want to try and strive to have as deep above the line relationship with any customer, just to mitigate the risk of churn and also improve the chances of high adoption, advocacy. It's always healthy. Okay, so that was Eric Martinez's question. What is an ATL? So the ATL score is, you could look at different aspects of how do you do above the line relationship. And so when we work with clients, we actually have multiple playbooks that we encourage companies to apply. And so think about it, the more you have a relationship with the executive and the more involved the executive is with you and your solution, the bigger vision he has, the more advocate he is inwards and outwards, the higher the score should be. And actually, in our next webinar, Driving Responsible Clients, I'm going to show you exactly how to score for ATL. So yeah, that could be pretty cool. This webinar is going to be recorded, so if you have to jump out, you can always listen to it later. But if you stick around, I'm here to answer any questions. So who here can actually relate to what I was showing so far? And if you can, go ahead and type yes. All right, really cool. So thanks, Lee and Scott and Karen and Greg and Brian. Awesome. Thank you so much. For those of you, one of you said mostly, so I'd love to hear why is that. So if you have any questions about why or how, then let me know. Okay, so the next, some answered yes with an exclamation point. I love it. Thank you. Okay, so let's take a different look. Maybe you don't have a churn risk, or you do, or it's okay. It's not a high priority. More of a priority is increasing usage. I gotta say, that's a very popular one, and I think 36% of you, actually more of you, said they want to increase adoption and usage versus battling churn. So this should be super interesting. So here's what your spreadsheet might look like. So again, we start with account attributes, size, industry. I added a different examples just so you could see how it might look like if you were an executive that's going to do it. Definitely you want to have the CSMs and any kind of way that you might be structuring your team around. And then you want to have the contract attributes, and that might be either in your accounting system, your contract system, your CPQ system, your CRM system, God knows. You want to look at all of them. And here, common things that I see clients do is they add the contract years. Some of you only have like 1 year, or it's month to month, so that might or may not be applicable. But some of you might have multi-year contracts, and some of them might be on evergreen, and some of them might not. So if they're not on an evergreen contract, then that's a risk to you, and you kind of want to watch out for those, especially if you're doing a churn analysis. For usage, I think it's okay, but you'll see how it all relates. So somebody here doesn't know what evergreen is, let me know, I'll explain. And then this is like, if I'm right now in Q2 or early Q3, I want to know, who are the ones that are going to renew very soon here. Okay, this is where the gist of it is. So I'm assuming if you're going to do a higher adoption, this is an example where you do have access to usage data. You want to do the next rubric here. So you want to look at every every user and say, in the past 30 days, have they used my system or not? If they have not used the system at all in the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on your application. So I had one client that's actually a budget and planning system. So obviously they're not going to use the system every week. They're going to use it once a quarter. So you may want to look at 120 days or longer. But either way, look at what makes sense to your system. Then you have the low usage and then the high usage. And you need to determine what that means to you based on what is considered healthy. And then you want to look at utilization. So out of the seats, how many are actually, how many users are actually being activated? So in here, you kind of start looking at, so the error should be really here. This is the number of seats that they have purchased, and this is how many they disabled. So sometimes you can see that, if they disabled 7, they're only using 3. That's really low. And then you want to also categorize usage. We talked about grouping and categorizing attributes, but you can certainly do that for usage as well. So let's say you have 4 categories: dead, adopted, power, that's somebody that's using it maybe daily, adopted, using it maybe a few times a month, and then dead, that's somebody that hadn't really used it maybe in the last 90 days. And then there's ones that are using it, but they're not even trained. So that's another area of risk. So you can slice and dice the patterns of usage, however it makes sense to you, because then you can shore up the right playbook based on the type of categories that you'll find. And I'll show you that in a minute. And then if you can, some of you might not have all of this, but some of you might be able to analyze what kind of users are adopting. Maybe it's a single contributor. You want to look at, is my business sponsor using the system or not? Is my admin using it? Are the team leaders and the C-level, or maybe some other functions in the organization and I'm not even expecting? If you can get that kind of visibility, more power to you. You won't always be able to get that. Now, for those of you who want to increase adoption and they don't have usage data or don't have it that elaborate, I recommend a couple of things. First of all, if it is possible to harvest the data using tools like Pendo, Mixpanel, then you want to start working with your product team to see if they might be able to collaborate with you. Oftentimes, the database, when it was structured, it wasn't structured to easily pull out data. And so if that's the case, you want to start talking to the product team, putting those kind of tools in place. If you're on premise, you want to start using your QBRs, your on-site visits to really understand the pattern of usage, and then start creating either an Excel or a system in place to indicate what features are they using. Have they fully onboarded on all those modules or not? Are there other products that they can purchase and haven't? And really manually track those things, especially if you have a strategic engagement model. Here's what you can do with this data. In this example, I chose to compare, it's like a very, very simple utilization percentage. So are they using the solution by a lot of the users, or very few users are actually using the solution? Two, either you can do either usage level, activity level. So say very few people are using, but the ones that are using it quite a lot, then you just need to train the others, and so forth and so on. And you can also use the health score here. Maybe they have a high health score, but low utilization. That means that they understand the value, and maybe you just need to train the others. So these are the type of actions, for example, that you can, or engagement strategies that you can drive for each one of the quadrants to get your advocacy strategy launched. And this is not a Bible. These are just examples of things that you can do. You need to sit down with yourself and say, okay, what is it that I can really do? What do we have in our tools as CSM that we can apply here? And come up with something that makes sense to you. But this is sort of like an example of how you can leverage that information. Okay, so Ben here has a comment. He says, I believe a big component of segmentation is allocating accounts to the appropriate CSM immediately post-sale. However, we won't have nearly as much data at this point. So what do you recommend? So I made some recommendations about, what can you do if you're even on-premise? You want to leverage those QBRs, those on-site meetings that you have with your clients, those phone calls, to start shoring up and understand from a human perspective, how do they perceive their usage of the product? Are there features that they're using or not? So if you can't track them right now, ask them about it. Do a survey, see what they click about, what is their interest. So there's definitely a lot of things that you can do, even if you're completely on-premise. Okay, so if you're aiming to expand, upsell, or cross-sell, we've had another webinar a couple months ago with Adaptive Insights, Senior VP of Customer Success, Carolee Gearhart, and she showed exactly how she's doing it. So when she's planning on adding additional heads, and this is how she's actually managing the team as well. So she has SMB, medium-sized clients, and enterprise, and then under each one of those, she's actually breaking them down to different tiers based on the client size. So if this is how much revenues, this is based on the ARR, the second tier is based on the potential, which is the size of annual revenues that the customer has. So I thought this was interesting. This is one way of saying what is the real potential for the client. So it's based on client size and ARR. Some of you might make more sense to just do it by employee size because it really relates to the seats. But if your solution is more based on revenues and transactions, like they're a very financial type application, it really does make sense to look at the annual revenues. Okay. Okay, so depending on your customer success management goal, whether it's to increase profitability, improve onboarding, increase loyalty, the segmentations or sub-segmentation should correlate to achieve and help you with this goal and drive the right strategy. So can you see just how powerful this segmentation is for your customer success strategy? Type yes if you see something in this for you, and you can see how powerful this could be. Right, great. So Lee and Dante, Robert, yes, that's awesome. Eric, Michael, we got Luke. God, I couldn't pronounce your name. The last name, Brian. Awesome. So a lot of people, thank you so much. Yeah, Ali, thank you so much for doing that. Definitely from Anthony Nguyen to say thank you so much. So this is really great. I'm really glad you're seeing it. I think it's super powerful, and I wish more of my clients would do that. So it's time for you to just go ahead, analyze your customer data, get the insights you need to be able to execute the right playbooks to the right customer segment or the right customer cohort. Remember, analyzing the client data and segmenting your client base can help you improve your engagement model to drive the results that you need right now. And nothing that I've shared with you today is theory. Every single one of these strategies have been proven by other customer success professionals to reduce churn, to drive adoption, advocacy, upsell. If it sounds too complicated, or you don't know where to start, or you need that formula for the financial value, or really the data collection is way too difficult because it's way too many systems, it's just time consuming, and you don't know where to begin, you need a coach. We offer at the CSM Practice a coaching program mainly for executives, but also for CS practitioners that wants to advance. And we look at process, people, and purpose. Our coaching sessions are very hands-on. We start with a gap assessment of where our best practices, and then we do a live assessment with you, a live session. We talk about best practices. We create a deliverables plan. How would your spreadsheet look like? How would that quadrant look like? Help you create those Excel spreadsheets with you, and we do deep dive sessions on each one of them to tackle all the hurdles you might have in order to get to those results I just showed you. And then once you create them, we do a deliverables review. But you do most of the work. We're there to coach you. We also do turnkey solutions, but we find that that is a little bit too expensive for most of our customers. So we developed this tailored program where we do video conferencing and we teach you how to get to these results. So I think it's an incredible type of program. Type of things that we do is, segmentation and engagement model optimization, just like I showed you today. We go over what metrics and what KPIs and what calculated metrics we should have and how to do the indexes. We help you come up with the right cohort analysis for the right outcome that you're trying to achieve. And then we come up with the right segmentations and engagement model, and we can either coach you all the way through to finding the right playbooks for the right cohort, and then creating the right graphs and dashboards that you can then show to the board of directors so that you can prove the results of your work and the results of your efforts. So we'll help you benchmark between your baseline today and how you're looking in a quarter or 3 quarters from now. The distinct difference of our program is the deliverables. We don't just talk, we're actually coaching you through achieving these actual spreadsheets and actual analysis. And so it's a very, very detailed, all the way to playbook templates if you needed to. If you just want to experiment it, a single session is $350. The reason is because we think that the more you invest in your program, the better. So we actually love it when customers invest in a quarterly program with us. And that would be something like the bronze or the silver packages here at the bottom. And we don't just offer the CS Navigator, which is what I showed you right now. We also offer, and that's the bulk of our business actually, technology services. So if you have a customer success system and you just need to push more data into it so you can start having this kind of visibility, we're there for you. We are there to configure it, do some system integration, and we're really experts on data mapping and doing the right architecture to do the right analysis and do data load automation and data marts and all of that. And we specialize in Salesforce, CSM systems like Amity, and business intelligence tools. So whatever you have, whatever you need to get across that bridge, we have the team in place to help you out. If this webinar was effective for you and you enjoyed it, I'd actually recommend you want to scale your team. I actually recommend you take a screenshot, watch these recordings of these other webinars we've had on the series already. This is the one you're watching now, and then we have the last one in August about creating responsible customers, where we're going to show how to score for ATL, in fact, how to create a scoring model for clients, and what else do we have in our tools to drive more accountability. This is me, Irit Eizips. If you're interested in any of my programs for my firm and my team, you want to learn more, feel free to either direct message me on Twitter or email me after this session at irit@csmpractice.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I'm very easily found, I think. Thank you for being here. Great engagement today. Wonderful questions. I'm going to stick around to see if you have any questions, and I'm going to answer as many as I can. Hoping the session was good for you. If so, God bless you, and I'll see you in the next webinar. Otherwise, stick around. I'm going to answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Irit. That was fantastic. Super good stuff, as always, and very actionable. So I hope everyone's excited to review the recording tomorrow and start looking at their segmentation programs. And thanks so much, everyone, for being so engaged today. We do have about 5 minutes to answer some questions, so why don't we get started? So Robert right here is asking, they're currently segmenting based on ARR, and every CSM has all kinds of accounts. How do you recommend selling to management on segmenting CSMs in addition to accounts?
Well, obviously, if you have 500 to 175, you're going to lose money if you're going to give a 500 ARR account a dedicated CSM, right? So it doesn't really make sense. So the first thing that we do is we look at the CSM ratio. We look at what a strategic engagement really looks like and how many hours do we need to dedicate just executing this strategy for every single client regardless of their ARR. So there's no we basically demonstrate, Robert, that there's no economic sense in applying the same engagement model to all of the segmentation. So they might say, well, okay, we'll just do it by ARR and that will be it. And that might be fine for management. I think the sub-segmentation is something that you can do for yourself. And so think about it as a way to create a more focused strategy and a more, as you know, laser sharp next steps with every specific client cohort. So I don't know if that's something that I need to sell to management, but if I were you and you, let's say you're a CSM and you wanted to talk about it with your executive, I would definitely first of all tell them to sign up for this webinar and watch the recording, or you know, call me and I'll explain it to them. But essentially, it's just you know, it just creates a more focused ability to create focused playbooks on specific needs, and you actually really lose visibility if you don't do that, and you might apply the wrong playbook, or you might apply too many resources to somebody that's not even profitable as it is. And so that's my take on it.
Awesome. Thanks for your answer. Do we have any more questions? We still have a couple of minutes.
I think Jim has asked the question. Jim Sanford.
Oh yeah, right. So I don't know if we have enough time to go fully into that, but the question is more about health score and how to develop an approach to assess health score as a metric.
Right. So unfortunately, I haven't really planned for doing a health score webinar, but like I said, you know, our CS Navigator program is something that you can engage either as a single session, or if you wanted to develop a full health score, either for a single segment or for the entire customer base. That's something that we can help with the CS Navigation, and really the CS Navigator program will work with you, Jim, to find out what's the right health score for your company. So I highly recommend just looking into this.
Awesome. Perfect. So I think maybe it's time to wrap up. But Irit, first of all, thank you so much for yet another awesome webinar. Very excited for the last one of the series in August. So I hope everyone is also looking forward to signing up and attending. Everyone, thank you so much for attending today and taking the time. Amity's next webinar is happening in 2 weeks, and it's about NPS and how NPS can supercharge customer success, and we're hosting it with Woodrick. So also very excited about that, and in the follow-up email we'll be sending the recording of this session, and you'll be able to sign up for the next webinar as well. So just keep an eye out in your inbox, and you'll be getting an email from me tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Irit. Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome end of your day.